All right, I am recording.
We are live.
Can you play Tubular Bells on your keyboard there?
I don't know what that is.
That's the music that plays
Oh, for
in the
Exorcist.
beginning. You know, the dinner.
No, I didn't. I didn't have time to learn that either.
Come
I just got.
on.
I just got John Carpenter because it's one key. You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode just in time for October spookiness. We have
And I have a
uh
satanic background.
we have the 1973 The Exorcist. Came out on December 26, 1973, just in time for Christmas, you know.
Just in time to take the family to the movie.
uh, Directed by William Friedkin, um, who's like kind of a very lauded director. They do stuff like French Connection, things like
Yeah.
that. I'm just immediately forgetting all his stuff. Yeah, I believe he's still alive.
Yeah, he's like 90, but yeah. I just say my favorite. We'll talk about some William Friedkin movies really quick. One of my favorites, The French Connection. Also, Sorcerer, which is one we tried to do for this, but it wasn't something that a lot of people knew. The
Yeah,
Exorcist, probably one of his most famous ones,
yeah, most likely.
and then Blue Chips, which is a great sports movie from 1994,
Yeah.
and then To Live and Die in L.A., which was kind of an interesting. It's like about a Secret Service agent fighting corruption.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I was listening to his autobiography and it was kind of interesting because WGN out of Chicago because he's a
yeah,
Chicago guy. So he went to go like there was an ad in the paper to like start in the newsroom at like the TV station, and it was for a different TV station. But he showed up at WGN looking for a job, and somebody thought it was so funny that he was such an idiot that they gave him a job.
yeah,
It's he started working for WGN, and then he started working like their live TV, and they only did live TV. And then he had the gall to like he found out about this guy who was on death row, and he had the gall to like let's make a documentary. And he got a guy to give him $5,000. And they knew nothing about how to make a movie.
yeah.
Like they were cutting film. They said this is before he said this was before translucent tape, so they literally had to glue the film together to edit
Nice, fun. It sounds like a blast.
it. And while they were editing it, like somebody's yelling at them, it was like, "This is a live TV station. What are you doing editing anything?" um. Anyway, so there's this guy on death row who was very charming, and they basically couldn't believe that he actually killed the people they say it is, and they're like, "Oh, he's a black guy," and so the cops just beat a confession out of him. Like that's why this guy's on death row. And so it basically does this documentary. It doesn't really get released, but it basically gets a stay of execution for him. But while he's doing this documentary, he actually gets like invited to an execution because he's like meeting all the other people too, and he like describes that. Um, and
What was the
there's a
Illinois method of execution? Were they lethal? Were they gas chamber or electric chair
I
back
think it
then?
was electric chair.
Okay,
Yeah.
those are fun to watch. I hear it's lifeless.
uh, but like he said this guy was like so charming, but when he put him on film, like the charm just kind of like went away for some reason. And so, and so he's like, and he goes up to and Willie freaking just has this weird way of talking where it's like almost monotone, but like almost has a chart to it. Like, "Hi, I'm William Friedkin, quote unquote. They said I was the hottest new director in the world, end quote." That's William Friedkin. And so
Yeah,
apparently
20 years later, they'd say I was autistic.
and so he's like, and so he's talking to Paul Crump is the guy. He's like, "Paul, do you love me?" He says, "Yes." He's like, "Paul, do you trust me?" He says, "Yes." And then I slapped the shit out of him. And then when he interviewed him, he had like life to him. He was crying and everything.
Yeah, He's like, the system's getting me 7 different ways. They're gonna electrocute my ass. I got this dude in here beating the crap out of me, trying to help me. Where is God?
And so he couldn't get the movie released because like the lawyers won't let him, but he could like have it a film at a film festival, and he like took it to like a San Francisco Film Festival and won like the prize for like best film or something like that. And then he like sent it to like the governor, and he ended up getting a stay of execution for this guy.
Okay.
And then like, but then, like the weird thing later on, it's like, so he's like, he gets life in prison instead of execution, and then he actually gets like released from prison as like being like, no, you're rehabilitated. And then he gets out, and he like ends up having like fights with his family members and stuff, and like I don't think he goes back to jail, but like he seems like, oh, he doesn't seem like he doesn't seem like the person he was. He doesn't seem like the nice guy in prison that he was. Yeah. And then he like dies.
William Friedkin there to slap him.
And then he like, yeah, then later he just kind of dies of like pancreatic cancer. You know, and then that's, and then William Friedkin's like, it's like, at the time I think I was correct, but having looked at it over those years, I think it was just a great con job to not die.
Yeah, but with no emotion.
Yeah.
It's like, I set a murderer free. Huh. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, there's like this list up front of like all his failures that are just hilarious. It's like, this young man wanted to do music for my movie. I said, no way. That man was Prince.
Yeah. Like, is that a mistake? It's like, no, it's something that happened.
There was something where he was talking about like he had a chance to get like ownership in on like Mike Tyson, but that's how he described it. I was like, wait, what's this? And like, I guess like, you know, Mike Tyson's making money and he had like an LLC of him, and then like he could have bought into it or something like that, and he didn't. It's like, I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's just a lot of hilarious things where he just like had no faith in it. And it just goes to show, it's like, hey, if you think I'm a great film director, let me tell you about all the things I missed on completely. You're all my failures.
Yeah, this wasn't just a string of successes leading to this. No.
A cinematographer, Owen Rosman, I didn't even look up his stuff. So we're going to like slightly pause for a second as I look up what he actually did. Although they did shoot this movie kind of like a documentary, or they said they did. And that's why William Friedkin got picked up for this. Okay, so he's done like French Connection, and so he's worked with Friedkin a lot. And he did Network. Okay. He did the Addams Family movie.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
He's got some. He's done some interesting stuff. Anyways,
Friedkin's an interesting guy. His grandparents and parents fled Ukraine. You got to remember, Friedkin was born in 1935, so they fled. Well, they were Jews, but they're from Ukraine. I don't know if they're Ukrainian or Jewish or Ukrainian Jews. I don't know how they do that, but yeah, because there was a pogrom, not the World War II one, just one of the many before that, and so they fled, and so he went to ended up in Chicago, and he kind of had an interesting childhood. And I was trying to think of because I know his dad, he liked his dad, but he thought his dad was also sad because he wasn't really like a guy who, he liked to read a lot of books about history and stuff. But he wasn't really, he didn't like to work, not work, but he wasn't interested in making money. Like a lot of Friedkin's relatives were like all about like, oh, I own a business. I own like a grocery store or something, kind of like that Jewish story from that time. No, not his dad. His dad liked to read books about history and talk about politics and stuff. And he's like, oh, he would just talk to his dad for hours about things like that. but is like all his dad did was observe things. He never like he's a smart guy, but he just didn't really want to participate in anything. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, kind of smart guy, but not someone who was like he just didn't want to do the rat race, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like reading my books and all apartment.
I like my free time.
Yeah, which is like I totally get for
Yeah.
William Friedkin's dad. I'm like, cool, yeah, that's fine. I can't throw any stones at that. I hate myself enough to go to work, so I kind of comfortably. But yeah, it's not.
This is written by Peter Blatty, who did the book, and this is very unusual for the person to write the book to get to write the screenplay, because usually they just like those tween never shall meet.
Oh, this book is like my child. You want to cut it apart?
And yeah, we both watched the extended director's cut, which I guess is kind of like a make good by Friedkin to Blatty, who thought he cut like all the best stuff. So that's what this
cut all the, but basically a lot of the conversations were cut out.
Yeah,
which Blatty thought were important, and being's like the only versions of that movie I've seen and remember is the director's cut. So I'd have to watch the regular one to see like the difference. I mean, I enjoyed it all.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was any like, I mean, this is a movie from a different time. They wouldn't make this movie this way nowadays. I accept that. But I'm also a guy who's like, I have a love for exposition and long conversations.
Yeah.
Especially when they shoot it cool. Like when they were doing the lighting from Rembrandt, it's like, yeah, I just want their faces and just a black background while they're talking about this stuff. It's like, oh, it's amazingly interesting because the dialogue's cool and the way they're shooting it. It seems like this is exactly what you talk about in a dark room, is this devil stuff,
Well, this movie has really a slow build. Probably again, I'm guessing where the act structure is, but I have this being like the longest act one of any movie we've done.
Yeah, or the shortest, depending on if you just want to make a rack act one.
Yeah.
Ended act two, smeared into three, and then we have the exorcism as act four.
Cast Ellen Bernstein, who I don't know, Max von Sydow in old people makeup.
Yeah, it's like Max von Sydow always looked old. It's like, no, you just remember him as an old man in 8-hour makeup to look that old in the 70s when he was actually like in his late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, because I was watching this movie and I was like, wait, is that Max von Sydow? That can't be. It's like, oh no, yeah, that's
that Max von Sydow Sr.
And of course, Linda Blair as the possessed girl. So we
this is one of my. I don't consider. I'm on the fence whether this is a horror movie.
Well, like, Friedkin doesn't consider it a horror movie, but
okay, well maybe he knows more than I would have to go with him to actually made the thing, because I've never seen this as like the ultimate in horror. It's like, oh, this is like a procedural, like a police procedural involving demons and the exorcism of them.
Yeah, well, almost half the movie isn't even like exorcism; it's like medical procedures.
Yeah.
Which is what I like about this movie. It's like, okay, it's a process of elimination. So you've eliminated all the known, and then you delve into the unknown.
Yeah, it's like we're at the end of science.
I've never seen this movie before, basically because it's like, I know you just absorb so much of cultural osmosis, but yeah, I didn't realize like kind of all the procedure stuff too. Well, where did you first see it? Or
oh, I watched this movie probably the first time when I was 12 years old, maybe 10, because I liked it because the priests and they seem like calming people. Like, oh, they're calm people. They're talking about stuff, and then all this crazy shit's happening. It did scare me back then. It's like, well, what if, but only under the auspice of what if that's real. Yeah. And then as I went through life, it's like, I see no evidence that this is real. But thank you. I mean, good. Glad we don't have invisible forces taking over our bodies and little angels and demons sitting on our shoulders telling us stuff. But it's like, this was only scary to me even as a young kid, it's like only if this is real. And then I would kind of look for signs of it. Like, one of the reasons I know so much about religion is I used to read a lot about religion, just to look for the signs of, like, how do you know bad stuff is, how can you find the bad stuff before it happens? I used to have like weird things like that when I was a kid. People thought, it's like, why is he asking about this book? He's like 12. It's like, well, it's a weirdo. But
well, I mean, this book is based on a quote unquote real exorcism in like 49 or something, the last exorcism the Catholic Church ever did, but
in America.
In America. Okay.
Yeah, they don't there's a fine line. You have something in America called a tort system, which is basically means torts means wrongs, and it's basically a way to sue people if they screw you or your kid up with defective products or defective ideology or whatever. And we kind of, the Catholic Church is a well-known customer of our tort system, but for different reasons. But this made an impression on me as a kid. I probably wasn't supposed to be watching it, but I did.
I always heard people talk about it too, but they only talked about like the crazy stuff. Although the weird thing is, I thought I remember as a kid people talking about the crab walking scene, but which that was added back into the 2010 version, but so I don't know if that was out there before or it only came out after, and I just somehow like remember somebody talking about it before or something.
Well, this is one of those movies that in the early to mid, this movie came out like a year before I was born. So it was in the what do you call it? The zeitgeist.
Yeah.
I guess is like there were so many rumors and stories about this movie that weren't true.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, there were longer scenes and other stuff, but it was cut out of the movie because it was considered too disturbing. And you find out later, it's like, no, the special effect didn't work. The crab walk scene was put in the director's cut because they could rework it with CG and stuff and make it look better, because it was just her in a harness where you could clearly see the wires and stuff. And it's like, it didn't work with 70s tech and the kind of movie making they had then. That's why it wasn't included.
Yeah.
Because believe me, if they weren't including scenes that were shocking in this, there's a lot of there's one scene in particular I still can't believe is in this movie. Even by today's standards, the thing with the crucifix is like, wow, we're just out of our mind.
So we act one, we fade in on a brick house. We have the creepy music playing. Or no, is it just creepy? No, I think the first we get the Exorcist music is when she's walking home. But yeah, we just have creepy music playing. And then we have a shot of a Virgin Mary statue. And then titles The Exorcist. That was also like William Friedkin and the William Peter Blatty. And
the definitive edition.
And then we fade to like a sunrise. I think it's a sunrise in Iraq.
Yep.
One of the first Hollywood movies I'm not sure if it's the first, but it was the first in a long time to shoot in Iraq. And we have people digging amongst the ruins. The interesting tidbit I picked up from the commentaries, apparently like where they're digging, it was like, so there used to be Sumerians around there, and they would like go into a town, kill all the people, behead them, and then behead all the statues of their gods, and then just like bury all the bodies and the statue heads all together. So that's what they're digging up, is these archaeological digs.
Would be fun to unearth. Oh, look, a skull. Oh, look, a devil head. Sleep tight. Good night. Go climb in that tent and get some sleep. It's only 130 degrees during the day. Have fun.
Which makes me like want to look up like what the hell is up with Sumeria, because that's also like stuff in Ghostbusters where it's like ancient Sumerian, and I'm like, is this just a buzzword, or is there stuff to like how weird Sumeria was?
It comes up in UFO lore. There's some about like we don't know what we don't. It's one of those ancient cultures where we haven't really deciphered their language.
Yeah,
and because we really can't, because it was one of those languages where the spoken language died. The written language is this, but no one who's around who speaks it or who understands it, really. Or maybe there's like two guys at some university that think they do. I don't know. Yeah, so the Sumerians are always like, they played a big part, but they're because we never found that like with the Egyptians, we didn't know what all those birds and pigeons and wavy lines meant until the guy found the stone that, like, oh, okay, this translates it into another language that we do understand. Never found that for the Sumerians. So now the Sumerians are like, oh, that's the language of aliens and people from the stars and any other bullshit you want to assign to it. Doesn't mean it's true. It just makes for a cool story. But yeah.
Yeah, I always want to
very old civilization.
I always want to confuse the Rosetta Stone with the Tabula Rasa.
Oh yeah, they
which
sound
tabula,
like they could be the same thing.
well, Tabula Rasa is like a concept of like an empty person you can fit anything on or something like that. I forget, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty much a person who has no communication.
Okay.
Like, how would you teach them how to communicate? That's how I boil it down. I'm sure I'm oversimplifying that to the point of skit on Jackass, but that's how I get it.
We see a kid running and he goes finds some white archaeologist, which that's Max finds side out as Father Marin. Not of WTF, but
Yeah.
It's a different Marin.
Different Marin, different spelling.
So they found something. And then he ends up finding like I wrote lion's head talisman, but I'm guessing these are all just like demon head talismans or something.
Yeah.
Then the old guy goes to get his afternoon tea. And here I wrote with probably some malaria medication or something, but apparently that's nitroglycerin pills for his bad heart. So
yeah, his heart's failing him.
He's got this nice silver capsule to hold all his pills in.
Yep, those little tiny pills.
Then he just kind of like stares in the middle distance for a long time and just looks unwell. So, and there's like almost no dialogue for like this whole first scene.
Nope.
You don't know what's going on. It's just, then
it's
he starts.
It's a cinematic wonderscape.
Yeah.
Of a world so alien that it's like, and I've watched things where it's like, oh, this means this and that. And if you notice, these people are staring at him constantly and they represent like an evil force staring at him. And then you listen to William Friedkin talk about, on the director's commentary. It's like everyone was staring because half of them never seen a camera before. They know. Of course, they were just like, "What's this?" Because they're not paid extras. They're just a bunch of guys in the Arab deserts in Iraq that are just living in. Like I said, it's 130 degrees during the day. It's like, they're staring because you're not going to tell them not to.
Oh, that tea did look super fancy. I was like, what's that tea?
The guy had to tilt his whole body because he had it on his back.
And it's all delivered in like silver chalices and stuff.
Yeah, you know why they do that? Because bacteria doesn't grow in that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of water there for dishwashing. So, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, then he starts staring at some blacksmiths who are just like pounding a sword out or something.
Yeah, but they're doing it in a cool way.
Yeah, there's like four of them lined up, and it's like they hit it in a sequence, and it's like that ching 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 ching. And one of them has like a milky eye or something like that. So
again, it's just a visual, escape to another. It's like, oh, this is like the Star Wars planet or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like anywhere on Earth.
Then he goes to like I don't know, like they have a church set up somewhere because he's a priest and archaeologist. Which I kind of like that aspect. Like all the priests aren't just priests. There's like, here's my collegiate thing, and then I'm also a priest. So that's kind of interesting.
A man of faith and science.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. I've never met a dumb priest.
So he looks over some of the artifacts, and then like when he does, like the clock in the background just stops.
That's cool.
He says goodbye, and then he just kind of wanders off amongst the Iraqis and almost gets like hit by like a horse and buggy, and there's just like some like 100-year-old lady in the back just kind of like smiling or something.
William Friedkin said she was 108 years old, according to the locals. But you don't know from his voice whether it was true or not, or he believed it. As a side note, she's 108 years old. Anyway, as you can see, wait a minute. Let's go back to that 100.
She was the oldest bag in town. Left alive by beeswax and honey. Um, and he's like wandering still, and he finds like a giant demon statue, as like there's dogs fighting in the background, and we have some more uneasy music playing, and he like faces down, and then William Friedkin describes it as like, this is the face off between good and evil. I thought it was very apparent. Yeah. Then we just cut to Georgetown, USA. Some lady, Ellen Bernstein as Chris McNeil, she's going over a notebook, and she's just kind of like sucking on the end of an unlit cigarette. Which, does she ever actually smoke in this movie, or she just suck on the end of a cigarette the whole time?
You know what? I don't remember. Now that I think, I remember she really. I think she did. I think everyone did back then. It was required to make a movie that, like, you know, at least half the people have to smoke something all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the Damien, the priest, or it was I forget his last name. I just went Karis. Weird looking guy, but it's definitely a guy who embodied the 70s, because he's like in shape and not at the same time. It's like, I'm in shape, but I look gaunt. I have a double chin, but no body fat. Alcohol and cigarettes do terrible things to your body.
Yeah, I've got broad shoulders and a big chest and kind of no neck, but I'm also like, my cheeks are sunken in. It's like, how does this happen?
And he's like 37 in this movie, so she's going over the notebooks, and then she hears some noises in the attic, and she goes to investigate. But like along the way, she just leaves the attic alone. But then she goes to her daughter's room, and she closes an open window, and then like tucks her daughter in. And then we see it's the morning, and she meets with all the housekeepers. And suddenly we're in the middle of a movie shoot, and she is like a big movie star. She's doing some movie like about protest or whatever. But as they kind of like, as they shoot the movie within the movie, the camera kind of follows the priest away. But just for a moment. But then we see Chris walking home. Well, apparently she just like hands off a bag to her like butler, and then she's like just gonna take a nice walk home. Which is what I was like, wait, that seems unrealistic. But apparently she's just like, I'm on this movie shoot, I'm gonna rent this house out while I'm at the movie shoot. So this isn't even like a house they live in. So she just has enough money, she can just like live in everywhere she wants to.
Yeah.
Live at the movie shoot. I don't know how actors do it. I mean, I assume just everybody goes to a hotel, but actors might do something different where they just like Airbnb a mansion for the whole shoot or something like that.
Well, it could get the shoot to pay for it.
I don't know. Some actors have crazy writers and the stuff where they have to have like crazy demands that they'll enact on the studio, and they'll just put up with it.
Well, speaking of crazy writers, Stacy Keach was supposed to play Father Karras. The studio had already hired him, and the William Friedkin and Jason Miller kept going round and round, because Jason Miller basically said, I am Father Karras. You know that, right? He says, you're never going to find anyone better than me. So he came out and read for the role, and Friedkin thought about it, and he's like, yeah, I think this is the guy we want. And the studio was like, Stacy Keach has a pay or play option. It's like, we got to pay him no matter what. They're like, yeah, just pay him. No, this is the guy I want. Like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Because who was supposed to play Max von Sydow? I think it was the guy from Marlon Brando or something. Would have been weird.
Yeah.
The power of Christ.
Just falls asleep halfway through sentences.
It's like, did he die? No, not yet.
This is the real horror movie.
Yeah. The horror.
As Chris is walking home, she sees the priest again. It's Damien Karras, or I just call him Damien in my notes. So, because I think that's kind of funny, because usually that's associated as like a kind of like a name for Satan or something like that. So it's,
the Omen kind of did that for everyone.
Yeah. Which did that precede this? Was that like a 60s movie?
No, I think that was an eight. I was thinking that as an 80s joint or a late 70s.
Yeah, let me just pop it in the old.
Yeah, just look it up.
Oh, 76. Okay, it came later. Okay. Um, where was I? Oh, now my notes are going real crazy.
Okay.
Okay. As she goes home, she talks to her secretary. Was a thing or her agent? I don't know. It seems like her secretary. No, goddamn. I did a thing where I clicked the middle mouse and now it's like flying all over my notes.
Oh, that's always fun.
So yeah, she talks to her secretary and then she goes and sees her daughter Reagan, played by Linda Blair, who, I mean, this is her most known role, but she still did acting stuff, but you know, this is what she's known for. I don't know, do you know her from anything else?
Just like when she came back and did those parody movies.
Oh.
I also know she has like a really high IQ.
Huh.
Like she's exceptionally intelligent, which has probably worked out in her favor for an actress in this role. Because I remember, because you know I forget, William Friedkin had said they went through hundreds of child actors trying to find someone not only who could do this, but whose parents would be okay with it. And then Linda Blair walks in and he's talking to her and he notices like, oh, she kind of speaks like an adult. Like she's talking in complete sentences. It's like, are you familiar with this? Is like, oh yeah, I read the book. It's like, okay, can you describe some things that happen in the book? And he basically tells him all the worst parts of the book that would be her character Reagan would have to do. And she's like, yeah, I enjoyed the book because she talks about all the horrible stuff. And her mom's there, and her mom's like smiling, like, yeah, she really liked it. And William Friedkin is like, okay, I guess this is who we gotta, because this 12-year-old has the like emotional maturity to read this book and talk to me about it. And like, okay,
because a behind the scenes thing I saw made William Friedkin try to make it sound like he did his best to like not make sure like she didn't know what was going on, but apparently she knew everything that was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was still shot that way because he did say, it's like, I did not want to traumatize this child by a horribly frightening.
All right, we're gonna put this pillow on your lap, and you're gonna like stab towards the pillow. It's like, oh, okay, and then we're gonna edit, and then he just doesn't tell her like, and we're gonna edit together to look like you're masturbating with a cross.
Yeah,
we're not gonna tell you that.
Yeah. She knew it was going on, but he still didn't want to traumatize her with the physical stuff.
Yeah,
which, you know, depending on who you ask and what story you believe.
Yeah, that makeup. Well, those contacts seem like a nightmare, especially back
they
then.
were.
Yeah, so
yeah, they had to put stuff in her eyes that like numbed your eyes.
Yeah.
Wear those, and it was amazing. Like, there's two actual priests in this movie, like real priests, like because Father Dyer, the one who gives him rights at the end, that guy's a real priest. William Peter Blatty like worked with him to develop the story. And like the doctor she's talking to when they're doing all the medical procedures, that guy's an actual neurosurgeon. They just, hey, you want to be in the scene here? You know, we want you to do this dialogue. We think you can deliver it convincingly because you're a neurosurgeon. Yeah, sure. I mean, the 70s must have been a great time to make movies. Like, yeah, you get like the actual people involved.
Hey, you seem cool. Do you want to be on a movie? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like William Friedkin's. Even though he just seems to be very monotone, he just finds a way to like insert himself in like the lives of the most interesting people in the world.
Oh yeah.
Hey, what's your story? And he just writes it down. Yeah. Well, I wrote down the priest walks to his mother's home, but like, I guess is her mom's like, does he go to New York? Is her mom like live in New York? Okay.
He's in Georgetown, which is like, Georgetown is a big Catholic university. Because he's also oh
wait, where is Georgetown? I completely believe it. Is that just
outside of Washington D.C.?
Oh, okay. So it's not that over. It's not a huge jaunt over there. So
no, you can take a rail thing, I'm sure there. I don't know.
They're showing off it's like a rough neighborhood, and then So it shows his mom being like old and frail, but she refuses to go to like live in a retirement community. And then
She's
we
an
cut.
actual Greek immigrant grandmother, that actor, who
Okay.
they found in a restaurant. That she had done some acting in Greece, but essentially she was as presented.
Huh.
And they said they just gave her the dialogue. She did a great job because she had that really thick accent. So
Yeah.
it was kind of, but it was like, yeah, this is the real deal.
Well, I guess
Her
if you
name
like,
was Vasiliki Malyaros or whatever. She died not long after the movie was made.
Huh.
So.
She is
Then
now
I
sucking
tracked
cocks
to
in
it.
hell.
I don't know. I never considered that. I'm gonna ask on the Friedkin website. Did Vasiliki end up in hell doing the whole cock thing? That happened? I don't know.
Then we see Reagan and Chris are like playing like they're down. Well, like I think Reagan's playing like table tennis, and then Chris finds like the Ouija board for a moment, which I didn't know. So it's like, okay, the Ouija board precedes this film, like so.
That was around since like the 40s or 50s. Yeah, it's been around.
Well, I just know it's always associated with like evil or communicating with ghosts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I never know like where it originated or even what its original thing was meant to do. Other because they still sell it. It's like, Parker Brothers, or Milton Bradley, get your Ouija board. Because they probably just like made 1 million of those things and just like, yeah, sell it for $7 or whatever. Got enough in storage.
I mean, it's completely like something like that. It's like we don't have to come up with rules. We don't have to like pay guys to engineer a game. You just make some spooky looking board and put some felt pads on a piece of plastic with a lens in it, and it's like, yeah, that's gonna be the best thing in the world. Like, you don't have to have little Monopoly men, Monopoly money, and a bunch of complex rules. No, just sell it for next to nothing. Just your kids will have hours of entertainment being possessed by demons that they met on the Ouija board.
Well, yeah, I haven't looked it up. Like, are there any like stated things on the box of what a Ouija board is supposed to do?
It's basically supposed to communicate with spirits, and I don't know.
Okay.
It's wrapped in vague mysticism because, again, I believe it was something invented in the 50s, maybe earlier. At least as a commercial product, they're not called spirit boards. I'm sure they've been around forever.
Yeah,
but they just made it sound because it's a combination of the French word yes and the German word yes.
Oh, okay.
Because to actually pronounce it would be like we, yeah, but it's you say Ouija because we're a bunch of stupid Americans. But that's so they tried to make it seem like foreign and mystical, and it's like, no, it's just a bunch of guys. It's like the guys who made the hula hoop. It's like, how can we bring Satan into the family room? Oh, this thing, yeah.
Then we have Father.
Puts their hands on it, and it supposedly moves around, but it's just one person moving their hands. I mean,
Yeah.
I did all that stuff when I was a kid. I was always trying to be like some kind of redneck Aleister Crowley just to freak people out. Back then. But then I realized, like, oh, I don't have the dedication to invest in understanding mystery religions and the occult because it's just kind of boring because nothing ever happens. Like if I could learn how to shoot fire out of my hands, I'd be all in. But guess what? Never happened. So.
We have Father Damien Crass, who's the priest the whole time we've been like popping up here and there. He tells another priest, well, I think this must be Father Dyer, right?
Yeah.
That he wants out of the priesthood over some beers, and they smoke.
Yeah.
Oh, also in the previous scene we see like his old stuff, and apparently we see he used to be a boxer. And probably had a girlfriend too, and then somehow ended up in the priesthood. And he still boxes, but
yeah, just no girlfriend because
Catholics.
Yeah, I mean they're banning men from sex. What could be the downside? You're gonna just get dedicated, normal people, right? I mean, sometimes you do. Some people just aren't that interested into it, but not most people.
Not people who can like convince other people to believe in God.
Yeah.
If you can convince people to believe in God, you can convince a lot of people to do a lot of things.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the powers of persuasion. And then you start breaking out the old Latin on him, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's a wizard of God. This is magic talk."
Then we have Chris waking up to a phone call. Reagan's in Chris's bed, and she said her bed was shaking, and she couldn't get to sleep. Chris leaves the room and hears noises in the attic, and then she goes up there, but also the power's out, so you can't go up. So she goes up in the attic with a candle.
Yeah.
And she's like looking around, and like things are getting kind of tense, and then their candle just like blows up like it's a flamethrower for like half a second, and then the caretaker pops up out of the stairwell. It's like, "Hey, what you doing?" And you get a jump scare from him up there. He's like, "Yeah, you see, no rats up here." She's like, "Yeah, thanks."
Yeah, the exploding candle kind of get me off my game a little bit. Now that guy's name's Carl, and he's like a German house servant. Now, in the book, he has a much bigger part.
Oh yeah,
than he does in the movie. In the movie, he's like just kind of a background character, but in the book, he's like, he brings like his weird like German mysticism from growing up in the country in Germany. About oh no, this is there's a lot of German in the book too about what kind of evil spirits and everything. And I don't know if this is the first book that mentioned the word poltergeist. Which means angry ghost.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of people didn't know that that's a German word. It's like, oh, that's a ghost word for angry ghost. It's like, no, it's a German word. It means angry ghost.
Yeah, it's poltergeist, zeitgeist. It all means ghost.
But none of that comes through in the movie we're talking about. It's just kind of an interesting other thing in the book.
Well, I like that the demon in this is called Pazuzu. Is that like something made up, or does that exist somewhere else?
Oh, that's a real thing. It's
okay.
It's I forget what belief.
Well, is it a part of the Catholic religion, or is it some other?
It's
religion?
understood to be see a lot of things with religion, especially Catholic religion, which was like that's the original Christian church. Like that's that the Romans took over. It's the Roman Catholic Church. But a lot of religion like co-ops other previous religious things or other religious things. So I don't know if that's part of that's not part of the original like Christian canon that we name all these demons and ghosts. And so a lot of that comes from like Jewish mysticism. But they also borrowed a lot of stuff from like the whatever the Iranians were. Like they had lots of demons and stuff. Because Pazuzu was like a how'd they say it in the book? It was like he was a bad demon, but people carried like his icons and statues around because he was scary to other demons. So it was like you just use him to scare the other demons away. It's like, okay, I'm cool with Pazuzu, so all the other demons get away. And that was kind of, but I'm not sure what like the whole thing, because I know we borrowed like a lot of the like demons, angels, all that stuff comes from Judaism. And that's why they have such bizarre names and stuff. Because it's like that sounds like some weird like Pazuzu sounds like it's a reggae ska band or something. Like it doesn't sound scary. That's not like Mephistopheles or something. But it's so it's probably something hijacked from an older religion or Zoroastrianism or who knows, all that kind of stuff.
We got to a priest walking around in the church, and he's like setting flowers up. And then we see the Virgin Mary statue's been defaced with like boobs and a penis. So.
Yeah, it's basically got dildo boobs and then clay penis put on it.
Then we have Reagan's at the doctor's, and she starts being kind of difficult and weird. I think we also see like a flash of the Pazuzu face or whatever, where it just kind of looks like an old timey kind of like almost. What was the Nosferatu kind of like vampire almost kind of look to it. Yeah. But normal teeth. Well, no, not normal teeth. Like sickly green teeth and big eyes, and like a white face or a white green kind of face. which it pops up constantly. Which I think that was that an addition to this, because they're like several, like they'll have like pop up in like the wall and stuff like that. And I didn't know. If
Yeah,
it was
that I don't know. I don't remember. I doubt that was in the original.
like,
Because I think it appeared because the same statue that Marin's facing in Iraq, one of the last scenes in the book, you see that statue again next to Reagan in the bedroom,
yeah.
and those are the only two times that, like, I see it here at reference. So I think like it appearing on the walls and stuff is like a reverse projection or something. Probably something added later.
I thought it was funny that the doctor prescribed Ritalin. I was like, oh, Ritalin went back that far, huh? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's old stuff.
And then the doctor said that her daughter told her to keep your fingers away from my goddamn cunts. And so she kind of laughs at it. It's like, hey, your daughter's kind of being a bit like weird. It's like, and she kind of laughs it off. It's like, oh, I don't know where she got that from. Well, I think there was a scene previously you hear like yelling at her husband over the phone because she's raising her daughter by herself. Well, by herself and her like 5,000 caretakers, but
Single moms, it's a stressful life.
Then we cut to the next scene. They have Damien is being rushed to like a psychiatric hospital where his mom is unwell. Here's where you learn. Well, Damien's like a psychiatrist as well as a priest.
Yeah, because he's Doctor Reverend. That's his official title. It only comes up once. But yeah.
Then we cut to just Damien boxing. And then there's a party at Chris's house, and then here she learns about Damien from was it from the directors or is Dyer there?
Oh, it's from Father Dyer, yeah.
Okay. And then Reagan shows up at the party and tells the director that he's gonna die up there, and then she pees on the floor.
Yep.
She really just kind of pees herself, but it's not like.
Yeah, she's just standing there, just pee running down her leg. And like squat down and growl like an animal or something. But yeah.
So that's super weird.
Oh yeah.
Then Chris puts Reagan to bed, and then they're like saying just what happened was just nerves, and then she leaves, but then she comes back to the bed shaking, and then that's where, because the doctor said previously, it's like, she's lashing out and lying about the bed shaking, and now she's like, no, the bed shaking's real.
Yeah, it's like being pushed up by a hydraulic ram or something.
Damien, then we cut to Damien. He's going to bed like racked with guilt about his mom. Also, like his like uncle was there, like basically saying like, hey, you could have done something better with her about this, so he feels guilty about it. I think he's drunk and he's smoking. I think this is where Father Dyer puts him to bed and steals his shoes for some reason.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about what that was about. I think he couldn't leave or wouldn't hang himself with his shoelaces. I don't know.
But then when he goes to bed, he dreams. He has like a bunch of random images in his dreams, and then he sees his mom. He's like running for her, but then she just like goes down a subway station, and that's like it's like an analogy for her going to hell or something like that, or dying. I don't know. Yeah, because I don't. We didn't see her do any bad things, so there's no reason why she should be in hell. So.
Yeah, it seems like she just kind of like. Started having mental illness.
Yeah.
Or not even that, maybe just dementia, but unfortunately they couldn't put her someplace nice.
Yeah.
So she was essentially in Bellevue with people running around screaming and of course she's like, I don't belong here, and it's like, yeah, she probably doesn't, but
then we have Reagan is just screaming and yelling swear words at the doctors, and they hold her down and give her a shot. And I wrote down, oh, good, the doctor is smoking. Yeah, so we know it's a really good doctor.
Yeah, well, it's the guy who's he's so good, he's under stress. Gotta get stress out. He's probably smoking filtered cigarettes, which won't give you cancer, remember? Was that No, that wasn't the logic then. That was the 50s. This was later than that.
And then they run a test on her called an arteriogram by they tap into her jugular and give her an x-ray.
Yep, they shoot dye into her, the veins running into her brain. and then they can use that machine that's like knock 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 knock.
Uh,
It's just pounding her with radiation so they can see
yeah.
what it takes a picture of what all the blood vessels going through your brain looks like, which if you've actually seen one, it's really freaky that like, oh, all this shit's going on.
And so a lot of like the mythos behind this film about people fainting at the movie. This is the scene that makes people faint.
Oh, when the blood shoots out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had to take a nap after seeing that scene. Occasion there's like 3 times in my life I have weird reactions to like some stuff like that where it's like because I have an overactive imagination, so sometimes because like I don't have problems with like needles or blood or anything like that. But if I get it in my head and like I get over imaginative, essentially I think I can basically feel the blood going through my body and leaving my veins and my organs and all that, and it's a very weird, unsettling feeling, and I gotta go lay down for a bit.
Yeah, I think I would have to lay down if I was thinking about that. The only time I think about that is when I've cut or hurt myself so badly, usually on an extremity, where you can feel your heartbeat.
Yeah.
You ever get a cut so deep in your hand or something where you can feel like boom, 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 because there's so much pain right there?
Not that deep, no, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a weird when you get something cut off or whatever. Your heart, you're aware of your heartbeat.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're not.
So yeah, so that's happened. So that's happened like 3 times in my life. So although it's weird because like I have like my Fitbit on and stuff like that. No irregular, like it's not like I have my heart's not racing, but I feel cold and like kind of nauseous. And, and then plus it's like, oh yeah, and I can at least imagining all the blood running through my body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
And of course, doctors don't see anything on the scans, so they don't tell them.
They didn't see like the shape of a demon in her neural mapping or anything.
Back at Chris's house, the doctors get called in as Reagan is convulsing, and then she's like ragdolled around the bed, like being like flown about in like impossible ways, where it's like, okay, clearly her muscles can't throw her about like that. So, you see her eyes like change and get cloudy. Her face changes. Then she kind of like yells. She flashes the crowd and just yells "fuck me" to the horror of the crowd. And then the doctors give her a sedative and put her down. But they also like double over her voice with some weird like demon voice or whatever.
Yeah.
But she still had to say that. Yeah, I don't think there's any like. I don't know if they just had her mouth the words or she like said them on set and then just dubbed her in later.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's one of the most shocking parts of this movie. Like you would have to make her 18 nowadays to like a college student or something. You could never do that with a 12-year-old girl. Like I said, it's that part, the stuff that she says.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense because of what demons are. It's like there's a reason she's doing it. It's not just shock value. It's like, yeah, this is the most evil entity. This is like a servant of the devil. It's like, so of course they're gonna say things that are gonna make you uncomfortable and awful and like stuff you never think about. But yeah, it's stunning. It's like this is one of those things. It's like, yeah, this was a one and done.
And then the doctors try to explain the paranormal but to the dismay of Chris. They here it's weird that they caution against like a psychiatrist. It's like, we don't think you should do that. We just need to run more tests. But in the next scene, they're like, all right, get a psychiatrist. Chris gets home and then there's a call, but there's no one on the other end. The lights start flickering. You see flashes of the demon face like on the wall. And then we have Chris gets news that like the film director died, but it's like right next to her house, which I guess I missed the first time that he died there. But when she was coming back home, you could see like there's like police outside like near her house. But so I didn't realize that like, oh yeah, she died right outside of Reagan's window. So, or he died. I think I said she died, but I meant he died. And then we see Reagan crab walking down the stairs backwards into the camera and spews blood into the camera. And I have that being the end of Act One.
Yeah, let's definitely introduce something that's strange.
So in Act Two, we have Reagan's being hypnotized.
This is gonna go well.
Reagan's like face like kind of churns. I don't know what I mean by that. She doesn't do the head churn here, but or do I just mean she like starts getting like sickly or something? Anyway, she grabs the hypnotist's balls and kind of like debilitates him. So hypnotism isn't gonna work. Then we cut to Damien. He's running track, and there's some dude reading a paper waiting for him. It's Detective Kinderman, who tells Damien that
JT Cobb.
do you know him or like?
He's like a cop actor.
Oh, okay.
This guy's been a cop Lee J. Cobb. Yeah, this guy's played a cop in all kinds of things. I mean, he's been on TV since like the 60s. But he was, and I think he was blacklisted too for being. They accused him of being a communist.
Okay. So Detective Kinderman tells Damien the death about the director, Burke Dennings. He fell down some stairs, but then he gives him the added fact that his head was spun around backwards.
Yeah.
And then basically the detective's trying to recruit him to like look into the case to see if the girl killed Burke, which I don't really know. Like, this guy must be a great detective if he made that leap that like, I think a girl who's kind of sick may turn this man's head on backwards. That's some hell of an intuition that he's got there.
Yeah, well, he is the ultimate voice of reason.
Yeah.
He is like, look, I know how this happened. I can think this through. So he's like the guy, like, I don't know what's going on. He's kind of he kind of gives a what's the guy Columbo.
Yeah.
Remember Columbo? He kind of does the performance like that before Columbo was Columbo. Because he's very low key. He talks and he kind of talks through things, and he's like,
just one more thing.
So now that we've done all this, you can see why I'm thinking this way. Now, can you tell me anything that might, not make me believe that?
Then we see Reagan at the hospital. She's flipping out, and then we cut to like Chris, and she's like with a panel of doctors, and they're trying to like describe possession in medical terms. Like, you see, there's kind of like an alien presence.
Yeah.
Like, you mean extraterrestrial? Like, no. And then they just straight up suggest, hey, you know what an exorcism is? So, I guess it's a fun way. Like, it's a horror movie, so an exorcism can exist. I think it's great that they bothered to go through all of like real world plausibility until eventually you have to give into the implausible because it's a movie, so anything can happen. So
yeah, it's the Occam's Razor movies.
Detective Cameron looks over the crime scene, and then we cut to Chris finding a cross in Reagan's bed, and she questions the housekeepers about it, but nobody says they put the cross there. Kinderman shows up to question Chris about her daughter, like whereabouts on the night of the murder, and then Kinderman asked for Chris's autograph. And I didn't know if this was a ruse or he's just genuine. I don't know. But like at like the last shot in the movie is him like asking Father Dyer's like, hey, you want to go see a movie? So apparently he was a big movie buff or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he lies and says like, it's for my daughter, and it's like, I lied, it's for me. So I thought there was going to be something later on where it's like he uses her signature to do something, but no, that's not what this movie is. So,
no, he's just kind of a quirky guy. Yeah.
Then there's a commotion upstairs where you see Reagan stabbing her crotch with a cross.
Yeah.
She fights her mom. Her head turns on backwards. She speaks in a different voice and says, like, do you know what your cunting daughter did? What your cunting daughter did? And
that's the director's voice that died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not really clear, but Friedkin did that in the commentary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because like the demon constantly uses people's voices that they know to like agitate them.
Yeah.
Because then, because there's a thing later on where it says, I mean, what's what Marin says is like, this thing's gonna tell you one truth, so it can tell you like 4 lies or whatever. So,
Right.
um, Chris meets with Damien to find out who he is, and then she suggests like an exorcism to Damien. He's really skeptical about it. He's like, "Yeah, I can't just do that. Like, one, I don't believe in it. Two, I have to get permission from the Catholic Church to do it." So, um, but then Chris breaks down crying and convinces him to like look at Reagan. Damien meets Reagan. She's like tied to the bed. The bed is padded. Like like all the posts are like have pillows duct taped to it so she can't hurt herself. Um, and like her face is like all messed up, like just has like sores and stuff all over it. She's got an oxygen tube going to her nose. And I think her by this point her eyes are yellow or whatever. Um, Here she uses like early in the film. There's a when Damien's like, I think when it's going to meet his mother, there's like a homeless guy. He's like, "Hey, father, can you help a guy who used to be an altar boy?" And he's just like, and he has like bright blue eyes, which I didn't know what that meant. It was like, it's like, is bright blue eyes a demon thing? Or it's just a like, because also Max von Sydow had had the same like glowing blue eyes. But I think that's just his eyes. But anyway, so the Reagan uses that guy's voice to say the same line, and so that kind of takes Damien back a bit. It's like, um, yeah, and it was also like the demon claims that his mother's in there with her and the girl, and then Damien questions if she knows like who his mother's maiden name is, and then that's when she just pukes in his face.
Yeah.
Which the trivia on that is that apparently they screwed up how to fire it and it went in his face, and that was just his genuine horror about like all that weird gunk going down his throat.
Yeah.
Although I see behind the scenes and they're testing it, and they don't. The test shots didn't like that seemed to go where they wanted to, or just like on his chest. But anyways, movie mythology. It's fun. So
Right. Yeah.
the happy accident is everyone's intended the purpose. And then Damon's like listening to, I can't remember, did he have the holy water in this scene? Because he tests something where like he hits her with holy water and she says it burns, but like he says later on that like it was just tap water. So
Yeah. No, that was the first because he was testing the legitimacy of it.
Yeah.
Which makes it sound like, oh well, it's not legitimate. Then it's like, no, deceptive. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, it's a riddle within a wheel within an enigma. Okay, all right.
Damien listens to recordings in this like neat like reel to reel table room. Like it's got like it's a whole classroom of just reel to reel tables. It's really neat. Well, I mean, yeah, because they're at the Georgetown campus, so he probably has access to this stuff. But yeah, that's how you used to have to listen to audio stuff.
Yep. And it's back. It's the most expensive form of old antique media because people love to buy those things and have them redone and play the music. And it's like, yeah, it costs. I forget. They break it down in like cost per minute of listening, and it's like way more expensive. It's like 100 times more expensive than vinyl.
Man, something's even more expensive than vinyl.
Oh yeah, it got reel to reel, especially with original recordings, or not original recordings, but produced recordings, because no one makes the tape anymore.
Yeah,
the last place they made it, I think, was in the Ukraine.
Huh?
And I think BASF was that was a German company, and I think they had a plant in Ukraine that made it till the 90s.
Huh.
But now it'll come back because everyone's ridiculous. See, I always wanted a dummy running behind me. I wanted to get one of those big Roland, the with the 88 millimeter reels, and just having run on a loop behind me, like that's how we were recording the show. And I looked into like, yeah, how can I find a broken one and just wire it to run, with like a loop tape on it? It's like, no, they don't work. They got a transmission in them and stuff. That's why they're so expensive. They can record at like 10 different speeds, and you have to get in there and mess around with stuff to make them work like that. And it's like, oh yeah, when you start exposing me to electricity, yeah, you can forget it. I'll have a fire break out behind me.
We cut to Damien is giving communion, but he seems distraught. And then we cut to Damien is setting up a recorder and interviews Reagan. A drawer pops open. He's like, "Did you do that?" And he's like, "Do it again," but she doesn't do it. They speak Latin for a bit. Oh wait, no. Here I have is where Damon throws the holy water on her, and then she says it burns, but he's like, but it's just tap water. But she also starts talking backwards. Yeah. Damien talks with Chris, and then he's like, he said that she reacted with the holy water, but it wasn't, so it must not be true. So it doesn't support exorcism. But then Damien's reviewing the recording with an audio engineer at the college who like recognizes it being backwards, and so they reverse it to reveal a hidden message, but it's just kind of like just more weird stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any did you pick out anything significant about the backwards talk? Okay.
No, because it would be like demon talk or something, and I barely know the English language, so I wouldn't know how to.
Well, they did reverse it. I just don't remember anything significant being said.
I don't, like I said, I mainly watched it with the commentary.
Okay.
It reminds me of one of my favorite scenes in another movie I like that no one else seemed to, the Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere. Remember where the guy goes outside with a recorder, and then he brings he has a conversation over the phone, and then he brings it to an audio engineer. It's like, so how's this person distorting their voice? And the audio engineer's like running it through a computer at that time, and he's like, human vocal cords don't operate in this range. This isn't a distorted voice because the original voice was never, and they can't figure out what it is. And it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool scene in an otherwise kind of long, dreary movie. I think is cool, but no one else really liked it.
Damien gets a call from Chris's assistant. He goes over where she reveals Reagan. She has like "help me" that's like branded on her stomach, or at least raised weirdness on her body.
Yeah.
And so he looks at that and he's like, okay, that's super weird. She's tied to the bed. I don't think she did that like on her own or like as an art project.
Well, it seems to be coming from underneath the skin, not something that's etched into it, which makes it really weird. It's like, well, how is that working?
And so Damien goes to the church to get permission for the exorcism. And then the priesthood suggests Marin, the guy from the opening. We cut to Marin getting a message about the exorcism.
Marin's like, what the hell, man? What do you want me to do about this demon shit? Starts playing the guitar. What does this all mean?
Boomer lives.
And how does it relate to me and my feelings exclusively? Because now I've made that my thing.
I can't remember.
Not that, Marin.
I can't remember. He's like in Syracuse or something like that. But anyways, we cut to it's a misty night, and Father Marin gets out of the cab, and then he's standing in the misty fog, and like this is the cover of the movie,
right?
Where he's got like the doctor bag or whatever, and he's standing in the midst. It's like, okay, yeah, this is the cover,
which is based on painted artworks by a Belgian painter. It's called like the Imperium of Light or something. It's just the study of light in paintings on buildings and stuff. But as soon as you find that out and you go look up at the paintings, you're like, yeah, he's right. That's what it looks like. Okay, that's cool.
Then Marin gives Damien a list of things to go gather. Damien asks if Marin wants to hear the background, and Marin's just like, why? Here's where he says the demon is a liar. He'll lie to confuse us. He'll mix lies with the truth. Marin and Damien like suit up and can go in. They just got like more religious. They got like their dress blues, but for for church stuff.
Yeah. Priest combat gear. Satan combat gear.
You can hear groaning can be heard through the house. They go in. Their breath can be seen because they did the cool thing of like you have to do with everything practical at the time, so it's like let's build the set in a refrigerator.
Yep. We leave it run all night until it gets to -30 when we come in the morning to shoot. And then because of all the lights and stuff, it gets too hot for the breath to be seen. So we can only film for 8 minutes at a time, shut everything off, come back and film it again.
Reagan's spouting obscenities again. Marin blesses her.
Sounds like there is like a helicopter landing in my front yard.
Marin sprinkles her with holy water, and she says it like burns and stuff like that. Then they read from the Bible. Here's where we get the "Your mother sucks cocks in hell, you faithless swine." The bed starts shaking, and then the bed starts floating, and then Damien freezes for a moment in disbelief, and then we see the Pazuzu face for a moment. The room is quaking, and there's like cracks showing up in the ceiling and stuff, and then Reagan starts floating, and this is where they start yelling, "The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!"
Which is actually from the Rite of Exorcism, according to Friedkin. He actually got a hold of the Rite of Exorcism for this movie, from the Latin to English, and it's like, yeah, that's what they actually say and do. Oh, okay, cool.
And then so she lowers back down, and then Damien like binds her hands together, but then she hits Damien with like the good old like two-fisted Star Trek Kirk thing.
Dun, 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 dun. What if they started playing that music? It's like, this took a tone.
And then the lighting in the room changes, and then we see like the demon statue appear for a moment. And then they put Reagan to rest, and then they like leave the room and like go to regroup. And so I have that being the end of Act 2. Because they don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know they can fight this thing. Was all like Marin's supposed to be like super old because he was like the last person to ever perform an exorcism. So that's like in addition to his heart problems, he's just an old guy.
Yeah.
So
by the way, Max von Sydow's brother died during the production of this movie.
Yeah,
so it was like really a bad. It wasn't a great time for him to have to do 8 hours of makeup every day.
Father Marin is ill. Damien's in disbelief about what he witnessed. Damien goes into Reagan's room and sees his mother in the bed for a moment. And then
very shining looking image of like his mother, because it was like, oh, this looks like something from The Shining, which came out years later. But it's like, that's a weird, because it's white on white.
Yeah. It's very bright. Yeah. Well, it's probably supposed to mimic the mental hospitals, probably in some way, but
yeah.
But then like Reagan starts speaking with his mom's voice. But he listens to her heart with a stethoscope. And then Damien breaks down. Not reading that wrong. He just breaks down. He's like starts crying and stuff like that because he hears the voice of his mother and he's like racked with guilt all over it. And then Marion asks Damien to leave, and so he does. Marin kisses a small cross and gets out the holy water. He starts reading the sermon again. Then we cut to like Damien and Chris are talking. Chris asks Ray if Reagan's going to die, and then Damien says no, and then he goes, "Oh, I forget." There's like an intermission scene that I forget. It's like one of the most important ones that Blatty really liked, where they're just basically stating the thesis of the movie. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, yeah, because she asked him if he's gonna die, if she's gonna die.
No, this is like between Marin and Damien, like after like all the big effects go on, and they're just like sitting on the stairwell, like talking about this is good versus evil or something like that. But I can't remember.
Yeah, it's I don't remember the whole conversation. I know what you're talking about.
But this is one of those scenes that was added back into the movie for the director's cut. Um, but yeah, like so yeah, Damien's basically like gathers up like he basically realizes that this isn't about him and it's about like trying to save this little girl. So he basically is like kind of revitalized with faith to go back up there and fight the demon. But then he gets back up there. Damien he finds Marin dead, just slumped over on the bed. He starts fighting Reagan. Like, just remember, this guy's a boxer. He's just punching a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost hilarious.
It is funny. It's kind of weird. Funny.
And so he starts demanding that the demon take him. And so you start to see like Damien's face like change and take on the Pazuzu like makeup stuff or whatever. Yeah. And then like he gets into him and then he just runs and jumps to the window, hits the stairs. He's bleeding all over the place. And then Carl, the housekeeper, administers the last rites for the last moment that he's alive. Because you still see him like clasping or whatever.
Oh, that's Father Dyer.
Oh, is it Dyer?
Dyer? Yeah, it was Father Dyer.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought I wrote Carl. Oh, okay, I probably got that wrong.
Because William Friedkin said it was like his ability to flex his hand meant he was accepting the last rites, which meant he wouldn't go to hell for killing himself for noble reason. Yeah, like that's his Friedkinisms. It's like, well, maybe I don't know if I got that out of that, but now that you say it, I'll see it.
And then we cut to it's like, Reagan's appears to have reverted back to normal. And then we cut to like at least the next day, I don't know, Chris is moving out of the house. But then we see the assistant finds like a medallion. It's like, I'm guessing that's the Pazuzu medallion or whatever, but
well, it's the same thing. It's a Saint. What medal is it? It's not Saint Christopher. It's someone else, but it's the same one that Marin was holding in Iraq.
Yeah,
on the table. So it's like,
Oh, so is that supposed to be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Oh, okay.
It means it's like, yeah, this is like, yeah, there's evil in the world, but good can fight it. That's kind of the message of the movie.
Oh, okay.
It's like there's evil and there's a price to be paid, but it's not undefeatable. Until
and then Father Dyer meets with them and sees them off. Reagan appears okay, and then Chris tries handing off the medallion to Father Dyer, but he insists that they keep it. So I'm guessing. So now that seems more of a happy ending. I thought like, oh, this just guarantees sequels, right? Because that's the source of evil. It's like, okay, now I have to see a different one now.
No, it was always meant to, in Friedkin's mind, as the movie was filmed, that was meant to symbolize like that. Yeah, this is the power of good.
Okay.
But also means sacrifice. So it's like, good for some.
Dyer looks over the stairwell where Damien died, and then Dyer meets Kinderman. They start having a weird talk where it's like, hey, you like movies? It's like, yeah, but I've already seen that one. It's like, then they just go out, get lunch, and then titles The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I mean, it's shocking, it's hopeful, it's gloomy, it's all these things at once.
Oh yeah. And like you said, you'd never make this movie today.
No, you couldn't pace it right.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Japanese would make an anime like this, and then probably make her even a younger child. Just
just like tentacles coming out of her crotch or something. It's just what godless heathen shit.
I also like one of for the floating scenes. The guy was one of the producers was talking about a trick they use where it's like if you just use a wire, it'll contrast too much, and so you'll notice it. And so like they painted the wire in segments so that wouldn't pick up as well. So I thought that was a neat thing.
Oh, they did like World War I naval camouflage where you just break up the silhouette. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But apparently that didn't work for like the crab walk scene because I got added in because it could digitally take out the wires. But
yeah.
But yeah, I thought a lot more interesting movie than I was expecting. I thought it was just gonna be like a, like just wall to wall like head turning and puking stuff. But that's really just like That's really just one scene. Like all those things are kind of from one scene in this movie. It's not
Well, and the
really what
amount
it's
of time that
about.
stuff is in the movie, it seems appropriate and measured.
Yeah.
It's like because we've had this build up
Yeah.
to like how crazy is this going to get? Oh, real crazy! It's going to get nuts. But the rest of it is a procedural
Yeah.
with a lot of conversation and but not really answering a lot of questions other than that's like there's good and there's evil and this is it. This is the evil we deal with now. In the past, it was different evil. This is modern evil. This isn't some ancient Babylonian stuff that like, oh, we've computers have beat that and science and reason because they even talk about in this movie. It's like we don't do exorcisms because of like psychiatry and stuff. Like we understand the human mind better, and it's like, yeah, 90% of the cases, 99.9% of the cases, that's right. However, in this one instance, we have to go back in time, use the techniques of superstition and fear to fight this evil that we still don't understand. So, yeah.
And then, of course, there's been tons of sequels that are not as prominent or well known. But as you've said, they're okay for horror movies.
Well, The Exorcist 2 is terrible.
Oh, okay.
Because it's just a bunch of weird psychedelic woo-woo stuff with who's there? Like Richard Burton's in it as another priest. It looks totally out of place. It's like, what's going on here? Because it's about hypnotism and regression into some world. And of course, Reagan is now like a teenager or maybe a young woman at this point. And it's like, oh yeah, the demon's still with her and all. It's an incoherent mess. Now, The Exorcist 3 is a police procedural with with like the cop understanding like, oh yeah, this is evil. And it's not a great movie. It's not as good as this one, but it's kind of good in its own way.
Yeah. With low expectations, it's a good movie.
Yeah. But this is just a great movie. For a lot of reasons, but like I said, I vaguely consider this a horror movie.
Yeah.
I consider this like almost just a story with horrific elements in it, supernatural elements, but they play a small part. I mean, you actually probably have literally 10 minutes on-screen supernatural horror in this whole movie.
Yeah, because it only takes like an hour and 40 minutes to get to like the actual exorcism.
Yeah.
Also, that the movie's called The Exorcist, and the one guy who's an exorcist is in the movie for like 8 minutes.
Yeah. You see him more in a rack wandering around. But he's an interesting character, and because Max von Sydow is great at that kind of silent acting, where it's just his presence and the few words he says carry weight because of what kind of actor he is. Because he was like a Bergman actor.
Oh yeah.
All those abstract movies with him, so he's kind of used to acting, kind of as a furniture that has dialogue occasionally, but it's more of a look and a way he carries himself that does
large man.
Yes, very large Swedish man.
Well, yeah, as all the Swedes are.
Yeah, there's no little Swedes. They got bred out. The years of fighting. Always loved the whole Scandinavian dichotomy. Everyone's like, oh, they seem happy and, they have great countries to live in. And it's like, yeah, they were only the most frightening killers on the planet for 1,000 years. And then they got kind of zinny with socialism. It's sort of a weird arc that they traveled. So like we were talking about the Sumerians and the Egyptians and the ancient civilizations. It was because of people from that part of the world that the Bronze Age collapsed. Because when these lunatic giants would show up on boats and just start killing everyone, like, yeah, they couldn't deal with that. They had no idea what these people were, who they wanted. They didn't have capitals to conquer or cities to overrun. They just show up on boats and kill and kidnap people and steal. And they did it so much, it like destroyed the economy of the Bronze Age. Has nothing to do with The Exorcist, but they call them the Sea Peoples.
Well, according to the Internet Movie Database, voted on by user submission, The films of 1973, the most notable is The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look up the box office, but as far as I know, it was a huge success.
Oh, it was Blair Witch money. It was like $12 million budget, $500 million in return. It was like crazy.
Then we got Soylent Green.
Yep. It's another upbeat movie.
American Graffiti.
Yeah.
The Sting. We got The Wicker Man.
Oh, that's a great one.
Got High Plains Drifter.
That's another odd Clint Eastwood movie.
We got The Holy Mountain, which is a weird Jodorowsky movie. So I don't know if like, was that really that popular, or is that just like people? It's more known now than it was back then, so it gets more votes. I'm not
Probably one of those. Popular in like in places where they had theaters that would play it, like in New York, and that's about it.
Messiah of Evil. I don't know what that is.
Never heard of it.
Live and Let Die. Don't Look Now. I don't know what that is. We got like Serpico down here. We got Westworld.
Yep.
We got Enter the Dragon.
Oh yeah.
We got Papillon.
Yep, that's another good one.
So yeah, those were the movies 73. So Magnum Force Can't Day of the Jackal.
Yeah, we watched that.
Yeah. So 73. Yeah, interesting year for movies.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you like what you heard in How Kennedy, you can find us at where are all my plugs at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect, or you can go to verhoeveneffect.com. It'll take you to the same place. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice. You can rate us whatever you want. The only thing you listen to is the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can sponsor us at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. And we'll just do more faster, because that's what quality is.
Yep.
That's quality.
Quality is quantity.
We are ISO 9000 rated in our quality podcast.
Yeah. We are Six Sigma black belts. You can remember that term.
You can follow us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect, and you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both that and this show live and unedited. And you can find t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.
Be right back.